Hello and welcome to this long overdue second episode of our MiniStealth tutorial series, where we're creating a very small roguelike, stealth-like game. And today we'll be working on writing more graphic tiles to the console. So we spent the last episode making sure that we could create text-based characters in our console. Now we also want to be able to create graphics tiles for the console, for instance for a player or a wall or a floor, stuff like that. So let's get started. So what we need to do is so first let's correct a couple of things. There were a couple of small errors in the last episode, so the slides had a different name. This is just corrected in the slide itself. And the second is our sconsole clear function has a bug. So let's quickly have a look at that. We have our sconsole and we have our function called clear. And what we don't just need to make sure that the node texture is set to nil, but we also need to set it to is hidden. So that's for correcting our last time. Now let's look at what we're doing right now. So this is what we currently have. We have a console with its own coordinate space where we can put characters in various cells of the console. And we have our put string and put character methods to do so. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a second layer as a sort of background layer. So you could think and see it as this is sort of our foreground layer. I also want to add a background layer so we can have, for instance, background colors, but also have, for instance, a player standing in front of or on top of something like a floor, for instance. So we'll have two layers, a foreground and a background. And that means that we need to change our API a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a very simple API. We can place something in the foreground and something in the background. And I specifically say something. We're talking about glyphs here, and these can be both characters as well as graphical assets. And we can specify, of course, where and the color that we want to use. So this will be our implementation sequence. So we're first going to add the background layer nodes to the sconsole. Then we will implement the put foreground and put background functions. Then we will refactor the existing put character to use put foreground. And we will then make sure that you can set an optional background color for put character and put string. And we will show a player over a map tile to demonstrate the graphics drawing capabilities of the sconsole. So this will be our goal for today, to show that this is actually working as expected. So let's start with creating the background layer nodes and add them to our sconsole. So let's go to the sconsole one, and what we have here is an array of foreground nodes. So we'll add a second array of background nodes, and it too will be an array of SpriteKit nodes, and we will need to initialize these. So we have our LED foreground node here. We will do more or less the same thing. So we'll create a new background node of type texture, and we'll set it to the same position. So we can copy this. We will also set the color blend factor so we can recolor the assets as we need. We will set the a starting color, and we will set it to let's see, a random color as well, and we will set the Z position to be behind the foreground node, so we'll set it to -1. This means that the foreground nodes will be drawn on top of the background nodes. We will add it to the scene, and we will add it to our array. And I think that if we now run this, we should be able to at least see something. Okay, so we can still see all the cells. The reason why we can't see the background nodes is because we have our front and foreground nodes completely overwriting them because they're completely opaque. In our clear function, we also need to clear the background. So look for all the nodes in the background. And this should be enough to at least start using backgrounds as well as foregrounds. So that's step 1 taken care of. Second step is to create put foreground and put background functions. Create a helper function to get textures from the cache. We'll take a texture name and we'll retrieve an SK texture. And we'll first see if it's in the cache. And if so, then we can return the texture. If it's not, then we will get the texture from we'll load it from disk. We'll set the texture to nearest neighbor, so we don't get any fuzzy scaling issues. We'll add it to the texture cache with the texture name as a key, and then we will return it. And now we have a quick function that helps us get back these textures. So now we have that, let's start implementing our put foreground and put background functions. So we'll have a function called put foreground, and this will take a texture name, a position, and a foreground color. I will default to white. We'll get the node, add position.y times call count plus position.x. Then we'll set the texture to be the one we get from the cache. We'll set the color to the one that was passed in. And we'll set the is hidden to false. So if for one reason or the other the node is hidden, then we can just say it's now needs to be shown again. And the put foreground function is very similar. The put background function, I mean, is very similar. It will also take a texture name. It will take a position. It will take a background color. And we'll default it to dark gray. So we again will get the correct node, but this time we will get it from the background nodes. We'll set the node texture, we'll set the color and is hidden, but this time we will take the background color. And this should be enough for the put foreground and put background functions. So let's see. What else do we need to do? We need to refactor put card to use put foreground, because we were still just using the put character that manipulates the nodes directly. So instead of all this, what we will do is we'll take we will retain the texture name, because we still have to do our character translation table work. Then we will do put foreground and we'll take the texture name that we just got. We'll do it at a position, and we should take a foreground color, and this all can go, and we should also accept a background color. So we'll take an SK color, but we'll make it optional, so if it's omitted then the background doesn't get overwritten. And then we can say if let background color equals background color. So if this is unwrapping the background color optional to an actual value, if it was passed in, then we can do a put background, and we'll just use the square 16 by 16 one. We'll set it at a position, and we will give it the background color that was passed in. And this should be enough, and I think that if we run this, we should still get the same thing back. So let's see what happens. So we still have our hello world, we have all all these ones here. So that's working as we still expect. Now let's go one step further. So we should implement the optional background color. We already did that. We can also add it for put string, because we have our SK console and we have our put string method that just takes a foreground color now, but we can also add a background color, SK color, and default it to a nil, and then we can use put char and add the background color and the background color that was passed in. Now let's see what happens. So if we go back and we have our hello world here, let's try and setting a background color. So we have the console. Let's first clear the console so we can see it a bit better, and we have our foreground color. Let's make it red, and the background color green. This probably will be very ugly, but at least let's see whether foreground and background colors are working. So that one's working. Now let's add a player over a map tile, and we need some additional assets for that. So if you have your characters here, we will create a new folder called tiles, sprites or graphic tiles. It doesn't really matter that much. Then we will take our assets, and we have our tiles here, and what we'll just do is we'll take all these PNGs the treasure, the wall, the enemy, the player, etc. And we'll all bring them there. We can also bring the square there. And now we have also an enemy and a player and so on to a wall, a treasure. And I think we also need, we're going to use the square as a floor, no problem. Let's see and show these on the screen. So we'll draw a player over a map tile. We'll do a cool console put foreground player add, let's see, 3 or 8 or something like that, and we'll make the player green. Then we'll create a background and we'll use the square 16 by 16, 25%. So that's a light, a more light tile, and we'll use the same location and we'll choose the background color yellow. Let's see what happens if we run this one. This should give us our intended behavior for this session. So it's a bit difficult to see, but you can see the green player in front of the yellow background. And this is what the actual tile looks like. So this works, and this then ends what we needed to do for today. Next time, what we're going to do is we're going to show a map of the game world. So we're going to implement a bit more logic. Thank you for watching and have a good day.